I think in the general sense, all these photographs have been tweaked one way or another. I was alerted to the Queen and Prince Philip's last Christmas card, where somebody said that the Queen's hand didn't look quite right. It was outside Windsor Castle, but I've always thought that that photograph actually was probably taken indoors, and they put a sort of castle background behind them. I don't know if you know the picture I mean. But so, it's just typical. The whole issue of this photograph was meant to put our minds at rest that Catherine was, looking happy with her children. And to begin with, it did exactly that. And it's quite possible, though, that if you want to get a photograph of a mother smiling and three children smiling, it's more than likely that perhaps one of them wasn't smiling, and you maybe had to change it. I don't know what they did, but unfortunately, the effect that that's had, of course, is that we begin to wonder. Not me personally, but people begin to wonder, whether they can trust the photograph at all. And so I think any remarks made by fans of the Sussexes shouldn't really be taken particularly seriously. And if the Sussexes have been tampering with their own Christmas card, well, that wouldn't surprise me either. But then, in a general sense, I think, most portrait photographs are touched up. I wrote a biography of Cecil Beaton. I know exactly what he used to do, to the extent that the Queen Mother once sent a photograph back saying, through her private secretary, Queen Elizabeth feels she hasn't been entirely untouched by the passing years. Could Mr. Beaton possibly remove some of the retouching?
And how hypocritical would it be for fans and people speaking for Harry and Meghan, or at least claiming to speak for Harry and Meghan, to say that, well, Meghan would never make a mistake like this, but we all kind of remember that Christmas card back in 2019, which appeared to be a little bit strange, to say the least.
Well, that sounds very hypocritical. I mean, I think the most important point, quite honestly, is that William and Catherine must be living under the most enormous stress. We know that she's not well. We know she's had a serious operation. The king is unwell as we speak. Prince William and Catherine must, at certain times, wonder whether they could possibly succeed to the throne. They're only a heartbeat away from it. And whereas, up till now, the king looked pretty well, there's been a hint of weakness with his illness and so forth. And so the stress on them must be enormous. And therefore, I think that people should indeed lay off them and let them recover, the two of them, as best they can. They've got three small children. All these things will be affecting them, and they don't need external forces getting at them unnecessarily. They're the great hope of the future, and we wish them well.
Particularly at a time when Kate is recovering from an operation, for fans of the Sussexes to, let's put it politely, be mischief-making seems a little unfair.
I think it's all completely unfair. The sad thing is that the attempt to give us some news 3 weeks before we were expecting, because we were told maybe Easter we would hear something, or we might see her perhaps, that was all very positive, but it's all turned negative. And apart from the fact that she's having to get well after a big operation, she will be feeling very fragile, in every possible sense. So she does not need these attacks. So you're quite right. I mean, it's absolutely disgraceful that they should be doing it. But they're not the only people, as you know, because there's this huge furor in the media, and I'm sure it has a very bad effect, on her potential recovery. It's bound to.
And of course, some of the usual suspects are piping up with unhelpful quotes, the likes of Omid Scobie weighing in on the royal family in a way that has become somewhat predictable.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I don't take anything he says very seriously, but I quite agree with you. I mean, the awful thing is that there has been a sort of discussion which has built up. It's like, because of this photograph, can we trust the royal family? Well, I can assure you, if you can trust anyone in public life, you can trust the royal family. I mean, they are there, doing a good job for us. They're not doing it for their own amusement, and they put themselves out and they do amazing things and help people in every possible way. And, therefore, I think it's a shame that this has become a sort of trigger, if you like, for all these people to come out of the woodwork.
It seems that whenever there is something like this, it doesn't take much for the people who consider themselves to be Team Sussex to jump on the bandwagon.
I know. I mean, if you're really asking me, I wonder whether, the Sussexes themselves are encouraging this. I don't suppose they are for a minute, but, they may well be slightly embarrassed by the whole thing. But unfortunately, everything that they do seems to attract an enormous amount of attention. If they can be brought into anything, they are. And I personally would much prefer to leave them out of it. I mean, they seem to be completely irrelevant to this situation. I mean, yesterday, I was in Westminster Abbey when the working royals were out in force, and there aren't very many of them now, but there they all were. And they're all doing a good job for this country, and they're doing it for us, not for themselves. That's the difference between our working royal family and the Sussexes. The Sussexes are out for themselves, and the working royal family are out for this country and doing things for us.
And with King Charles being unwell right now, when Kate recovers, she will be of huge importance to representing the royal family on the British and global stage.
Yes, I think that we've come to rely on Catherine hugely. I mean, she has been a most amazing princess, Duchess of Cambridge, Princess of Wales, all the different things that she's done. I mean, if you asked me to choose one image, it's just a personal feeling. I mean, that picture of her at the grand piano in Windsor Castle in the blue dress was unbelievably romantic and exciting. And what a wonderful asset she is to this country. So I certainly wish her well. And if I say a speedy recovery, I wish her, the best recovery she could have. And if she has to take a little bit longer to get well, so be it. We want her to be well in the long run.
And she's such a huge support to Prince William, of course, as well.
Yes, and she's also a lovely mother with those 3 cute children. I mean, they're such a... You couldn't have made them up on a computer, in my view. You couldn't have made William and Catherine on a computer. That's what you should come up with. We are so lucky. We might not have been, but we have been very, very lucky to have them. And if I could just say one other thing, going back to their wedding in 2011, somebody who knew the private secretary said, well, that was a lovely day. And he replied, the absolute transparent happiness of the couple just permeated right through the whole occasion. And actually, I hate to tell you that was not the case with Charles and Diana. There were a lot of concerns about that marriage, even at the time, although it was, of course, a hugely popular wedding. I suppose that we're living in a strange time where any bit of news about the royal family is of enormous interest. And I would actually hope that, slightly going back to what I was saying about photographers, it would be interesting when you look at what portrait painters have done, what other photographers have done. I know a lot about what Cecil Beaton did with his pictures, but there have been times when I know Lisa Sheridan, who is a well-known photographer in her day, she tidied up King George VI's trousers. I mean, in her book, she shows you the trousers with the creases in and the creases taken out. She thought he looked better without the creases. There's a picture in Canada of the Queen Mother with, I think, Mackenzie King, the Prime Minister. And there's 2 versions of that. One, the king is there, and one, he isn't there. They popped him in, they needed him in the picture. This has been done before, and always with a good intention. And I think one of the things, which I'm sure you'd agree with me, is that putting out this photograph had nothing but good intentions, and unfortunately, it's been twisted.
And we certainly don't need hypocritical Team Sussex supporters weighing in and piling in it and trying to make something more than it is.
We certainly don't. And if I'm not drawn on the subject, it's largely because I don't really want to talk about them at all. And I think the sooner people stop talking about the Sussexes and let them get on with their lives in Montecito without, interfering with our royal family, the better, as far as I'm concerned.